Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to another exciting episode of Unboxing AI. This is episode number 15. Yes, I have successfully done this 15 days in a week. Morris, thank you for smiling. It means a lot. I have been in the
Impressive.
most. I'm sure one day my team is going to do a video of all the various places where I've done this webinar from, but but it's been a privilege and it's amazing. And thank you, Morris, for joining today. To all those who have joined, thank you so much. Uh, and for those of you who don't know, this is every Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern, forever. This is going to happen. The Unboxing AI webinar series by CARPL. CARPL is, I've started calling ourselves your friendly neighborhood AI platform. We are friendly. We are in your neighborhood. We do AI and we're a platform. So I guess that is factually correct.
Yeah.
And we essentially bring AI to healthcare providers. We serve as partners to healthcare providers across the world, helping them access, assess, and then integrate, AI solutions for radiology. Currently, we are the world's largest AI marketplace. We have some 125 different apps, 60 odd vendors. We are FDA cleared, and the only ones to be so. And as we will, learn in today's webinar, we now also have a universal AI widget apart from a universal AI viewer. So, yes, shameless self-promotion aside, thank you, Morris, for joining. Very, very, very excited to have you here. You know, Morris is
Thank you,
somebody
Vidya.
uh, thanks, Morris. I am going to, like I have your background from your team, Morris. I'm gonna tweak it a little bit and kind of take that into my first question to you. uh, so Morris is a Harvard trained lawyer, believe it or not, and now is has been revolutionizing imaging and imaging informatics for a couple of decades now. He was CEO of Ambra Health for over 10 years, which is, I'm sure used by a lot of players across the world for image storage and, viewing and all that. And until it was acquired by Intelerad in 2021. And since and he's been serving as president at Intelerad, again, a company that is really loved by its users, generally goes by IntelliViewer, which is the viewer product, and dominates certain markets across the world, including, Australia, which is where, we try to work with them. Previously, he built and sold an industry-leading BPO company, Open Air, which was sold to NetSuite. So you've done this a couple of times, Morris. Building a venture and selling it to a larger venture. That's pretty interesting. And of course, once upon a time, he was resident legal advisor to the U.S. consulate in Bogota, and has also served as a janitor in his high school while he was in college. So pretty impressive jump, Morris, if I may say. But yeah, that's where my first question lies. Like, how does a top short lawyer from Harvard enter our teeny weeny industry and change it upside down? Like, how does that happen?
Vidor, it's great to be here. And you and I have had a lot of time to get to know each other. And I think your notion of a universal vision for AI is really powerful. We're in the midst of something that is changing fast. And I think in some ways that jump off point is a good one for my own career and maybe for others who are launching in today's world, but know that it's going to be very different in a couple of decades. Wherever you're starting from, it's going to be different. And so that's really, I think, the theme for today and the theme for me. I was very, very lucky. I always thought I wanted to do two things in life. One was public service. And so I did spend a bunch of time working as a lawyer for the government in different ways and different places even. But then I knew that I didn't want to go out and practice law in that sort of sense. I wanted to kind of try to be an entrepreneur. And you were very gracious and only mentioned the things that worked. But actually, technically, I think I am 2 for 4. Two of my ventures have failed, and 2 have succeeded. And this one has been maybe the most enduring, and that's maybe not surprising because it's firmly immersed in the field of healthcare and innovation. And I think all of us, in some ways, have been taken by surprise by how dynamic this field was. I think it's fair to say that for the 10 years previous, so 20 years ago when PACS kind of jumped on the scene, for the next 10 years, things kind of slowed down a little bit. I don't know if there was the kind of pace of innovation that we're seeing today. But now with AI and data and the ability to transform both workflows and diagnostics, and maybe right now we're a little more focused on workflows, it is probably as exciting a time to be in this space as ever. And I know you have a background that I'm envious of as a physician and a leader and an innovator. I'm sure that you feel that same kind of pull and excitement that not to say it wasn't always exciting, but I think it's more exciting now.
No, I think first and foremost, physician, leader, innovator. I don't know which of those I will eventually one day maybe pick. But yeah, no, obviously, Boris, I think as building of software becomes easier and easier, right? Like we've got like high school kids uh, building
Yeah.
software and very robust, reliable software today. Uh, I think that's the exciting part, right? Anybody being able to enter this field and honestly, I find it so interesting to go from the world of medicine, which is very credential driven, right? Like if you've done a fellowship in neuro, you can do 1, 2, 3 things. Then you've got to do neuro IR, and then you can do these 2 more things. And
Right.
the world of technology is like, a few years ago, we literally had a 11th grade intern. The guy ended up going to Hopkins, so he was pretty smart. We had an 11th grade intern who built, and this was a few years ago. He built a matching system for like matching names in text reports to names in DICOM files. And as we know, they're not always the same. And he was able to do that. So I think it's that's the exciting piece, right? Anybody being able to build anything. But Maurice, I do
Yeah.
want to go one step deeper into the like when was it, when you moved like from being the lawyer for the US consulate in Bogota to then uh, you know, uh, starting a tech company, so to say. Like,
Yeah.
what triggered? Like, what was Morris Banner thinking at that time?
It's a so the sort of details of it are such that I got to a point where I had really enjoyed my public service, and I had kind of moved up a little bit, and I got to a point
How
where
many years was it, Morris, if I may ask? How many years?
I was in the government for about 6, 7 years,
Oh,
and
wow. Okay.
yeah, and I got to a point where my path from there was going to be a little more bureaucratic. I'd be less in the field, so I wouldn't be in Bogota. I wouldn't be running around like that. And the question was, did I want to do that? And I kind of just thought maybe that wasn't a good cultural fit for me. And then a lot of the people who hit that point then go out and become corporate lawyers, and that's a interesting and honorable thing to do. But I always thought, if I'm going to jump into the world of entrepreneurship, uh, I'm going to do that now. And one of the things that has always characterized my life, and maybe a little bit why I'm even on with you today, is I like to think that I build nice relationships with people, and that I kind of have a network of people that I rely on for advice for even more. And so one of my closest friends from law school had always said to me, I don't know why I'm in law school. My career ambition is to right now, I think I want to run a bagel shop. And I was like, okay. Well, he went on to be an entrepreneur himself, not surprisingly. So when I hit this point, I talked to him and said, hey, what should I do? And we had a drink, and he said, listen, you'll never forgive yourself if you don't take the shot. And you know, I'm right at a point where starting to think about starting another company. Why don't you come join us and start this company? And we did that, and it was a lot of ups and downs, mostly downs until it was up. And but I loved it. I found it extremely fulfilling. And interestingly enough, many of those people, that was about, a little hard to say this, about 20 years ago, but it was those people have then stayed in my life, and it has become a community that I have relied on and has let me build a group of like-minded entrepreneurs that really has been a tremendous opportunity. And right now, even I've gotten pretty lucky when Ambra, which we now call Intelerad, joined Intelerad. It was very fortunate. It was a very different kind of asset class than what I had been doing. I'd been doing much more classic venture capital, which is more high growth, high risk. And now I moved into more established company. You know, Intelerad is, as you point out, a really prestigious and well-established and very big company. And again, very, very fortunate, largely through personal connections within, and developed deep personal connections within the investors behind Intelerad, as well as the team there, and have been very lucky for the last 2.5 years or so to have served as president of the combined entity and seen yet a whole different kind of entrepreneurial activity. It's very different, but much bigger scale. And so for me, the jump was in some ways a pretty deliberate one that said, you've got to kind of try something and have the confidence to know that if it doesn't work, you can move on. You know, one of the things that I love about our culture is that people are not penalized. I mean, no one likes to fail, but people know that, you know, you give it a shot and you can try it and then try something else. So for me, it was definitely a moment where I just had to choose. And I was very fortunate that I had a good friend who said, when he said that, you'll never forgive yourself if you don't try. It kind of crystallized it for me.
Yeah. No, I think two key takeaways, Morris, from that. The first is just conversations, right? I myself, I'm a big fan of, like, whenever I'm stuck, I just speak to like 10 people I trust, and then try to figure it out. I try to find enough people who agree with what I truly want to do, and then I just do it.
That's cheating, but okay.
Well, yeah. No, but the second is that, and you put it beautifully, that once you're at a certain stage, I guess, failure can only set you back so much, right? And at least, as CARPL's also been going through its, venture journey, uh, I'm seeing that, just having the ability to learn and the opportunity to learn, and pivot, and then, change what you're thinking is just immense. It's incredible you were able to have that drink with that friend. And obviously the third learning is that, you should always have drinks with friends. So
Yes. And you could make it a coffee or a tea or a hot chocolate. I have a good friend who our standard is a hot chocolate, so it really does not require alcohol, but it is good to have a support network. I do think that the other thing that is underestimated, there are two things that are underestimated in the entrepreneurial journey, is one, the need to kind of go, you described that 11th grader who could code and create something, and that's amazing. But the thing that makes entrepreneurs successful actually is less the idea, is less that initial spark, and more is the ability not to quit. And
yes.
the ability not to quit, we used to have a saying in our company, just don't die. And if you don't die, you're probably going to be okay, because if you're getting any kind of traction at all, it means that somebody wants what you have. They haven't quite figured out how to fully assimilated. And that's okay, because by the way, bigger companies are very good at pushing stuff out that the market fully understands. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I've seen at Intelerad. When Intelerad satisfies a need, they're very good at that. What they are not set up to do is take the kind of risk that says, whoa, it's going to be maybe a couple of years before this pays off. That's not what these companies are set up to do, but where innovators are. But you have to internalize that, and you need that support network so that you don't quit. And I know you're very good at that, and your company has pivoted and evolved and really stuck in there because you see that vision. You said we have an AI vision, you have a vision, but you don't have a dogmatic view because the world is changing too fast, and you need to be able to assimilate those changes and be able to make sure that you're responding to them. So the first is you just can't quit. And then the second thing is closely tied to that, which I think you guys do well, is you have to be willing to listen to your customers at a level that is often very difficult for people, because you have this idea, but you have to listen to what they want. And I think one of the things that happens when you see academic translational innovation, it's very hard, because I think you spend a lot of time, if you're writing scholarly articles, proving your point. And then it turns around that somebody who you may not think is credentialed, just what you said, they're not credentialed, they have no idea what they're doing, but they know what they want to do. And all of a sudden, you have to listen to that. And that's why I think the two pieces of advice I give to people is don't quit, and be hyper conscious of what your customers are saying, particularly in our world, as to what workflows they're seeking and looking for. And if you're spending enough time on those, if you keep in there and you're really focused on the workflows that people are trying to master, I think you can really go. I think that is your highest likelihood of success. And even then, these are tough shots. But what's nice about it is if you just feel very virtuous that you're contributing to the world. I really think that everybody who is involved in this type of activity is making the world a better place.
That's very, very well put, Morris. And I think the just don't die and the listen to customers is easier said than done. It's because also, as I tell my team all the time that we've got to have a very realistic view of where we are and what we know, and what we don't know, right? Because we just because we think something is the right way of doing something doesn't mean it's the right way. And I think I'll just switch gears a bit, and also to everybody who's tuned in. We've already got a question. So Morris, we try to prioritize others' questions over
Yeah.
our own.
Yeah, I love that.
So
Great
so
to get
please
that.
feel free to ask. Not every day you get to ask Morris a question. So please utilize this time. So we've got one from Aditya. Aditya runs our regulatory at CARPL. So he says, as more healthcare systems move to the cloud, integration becomes a critical factor. How can we ensure seamless integration of different systems, and what best practices should be followed to maintain data integrity and security? Any thoughts
So
on integrity, security, Morris? Yeah.
absolutely. And in fact, I would start with the integration piece. So we've kind of jumped from, the philosophy of being an entrepreneur to, I think the question is very, very good, because you're not coming into a blank slate. You are coming into an environment that has a lot of systems. So if you're in a big hospital system, there's going to be an EMR. There's likely to be a PAC system. There's likely to be a variety of systems. So I think one of the first things you have to understand is as you introduce new things, you are typically the tail, not the dog, and you need to be able to integrate with these other systems. So that's number one. The fact that you are aware of it is huge. The second, on data integrity and security, I think that's a very much of a moving target right now. I think one of the questions, the first question is, are you doing everything in a cloud environment, which has certain benefits? And if you're using a public cloud, there are certain security protocols that are built into that. And I think that's a big selling point of some of the large cloud systems. If you're looking at a local system where you know that you're going to have to move across the firewall and maintain the application inside of a system, one of the most dangerous moments is when you are as a let's say it's Morris's Hospital, when I'm giving you access to my internal systems, because that's when vulnerabilities on your side, if somebody impersonates and once they move into my environment, there's a lot of risk that they can move beyond whatever initial system they were looking at, and then all of a sudden they're open to everything. So one of the things that I sort of now look carefully at is, if you are in a local environment, how are you looking at vendor access? What kind of systems are you using for vendor access? What kind of controls do you have for vendor access? And having that conversation pretty openly with the customer so that nobody is surprised by this. Because at the end of the day, one of the most important things is there's no bulletproof solution for security. There just isn't. I mean, that's true in life. It's true in cyber. But if you are capable of spotting something faster, if you understand access as not a 0 or 1 phenomenon, but more as a gated kind of ascending privilege, that will prevent people from overrunning what may be what was intended to be limited access. A bad actor gains control of their system, and then all of a sudden you have unlimited access to a bad actor, and you never intended that. So if you can even stop that, that can make a big difference. And some of the most recent and sort of storied security breaches that we've seen have been so prosaic, it's hard to believe. It's a bad actor has kind of compromised password, gotten into a system, and then all of a sudden, boom. And that is really, that's frustrating to everybody because it's nothing very sophisticated, and that's what makes it so dangerous.
Yeah, no, Morris, in fact, we've kind of gone through this journey of first being frustrated at the lack of access that we would get, to now being worried if we get access too easily, right? Because
So,
we, with while AI, with all the bells and whistles that we have, we don't want to be the cause for the next, whatever multi-million dollar attack that happens somewhere, right? And I think this is what I like all, there's this movement of AI companies and just informatics companies building in India for the world. And, we kind of speak to them a lot, and even AI startups that are on our platform, right? We tell them all that it's a good thing that you're not getting that VPN access easily. It's a good thing that you can't do telemetry all the time. It's a good thing that you can't do updates on the fly and stuff like that. So
right.
I think that's pretty amazing. And thank you for sharing. The next question is from Bhanushri. I think you've met her as well. What is your point of view on Intelerad's users' willingness to use AI? And how does Intelerad handle demands on AI before onboarding the companies and being able to show the integrations? So essentially, like Intelerad's
Yep.
view on AI adoption. Yeah.
Yep. It's a great question. And so the way I start talking about AI adoption is it's a matrix. I look at sector and I look at use case. And I think right now where we see the most AI adoption has been in health systems. Some of that is because they have the capability to experiment in some ways that ambulatory, private practice radiology does not. There are exceptions, of course. And the other is that health systems sometimes with AI have a slightly different aspiration. They're really thinking of population health. They're thinking of ER room utilization. They are really thinking about it a little bit differently. So, health system versus ambulatory radiology. In ambulatory radiology, we see some of the leaders. We're very lucky to work with Rad Partners, and Nina Kotler there is probably leading AI implementation and thinking in a way that very few people are. And you can see a lot of exciting things that they're doing. But I think that in general, the ambulatory radiology market is still trying to understand AI value. And so that's the second part of the matrix, is use case. I think that you're starting to see in the early days of AI, what you saw was great excitement about the ability of AI to do diagnostic work. And you heard some of the early commentators say, oh, the radiologist is not going to exist, blah, blah, blah. Now, that just hasn't happened. I don't think it will happen. And so what has actually kind of accelerated in terms of adoption is workflow. And that's not that surprising to me, but reducing administrative burden and enabling more rapid adoption of, I shouldn't say adoption, more rapid care has become a higher priority. So if, just to be very specifically to Intelerad, and I don't want to talk a lot about our company, but where we see the most interesting adoption right now is with our IntelliOrchestrator product. We have a API that, stay tuned to these channels, that is going to make it easier and easier for applications to integrate and help prioritize radiology and radiologists' workflow and work demands. That's going to be very important. And then, of course, one of the things that we do is we have partnerships with companies like CARPL, who are becoming that way that people can both integrate and test AI. And so I think there's a lot of interest in how do those platforms work, where do they fit inside of the workflow, and where is the best way to get value from them. So that's kind of the matrix approach of how we think about the market. And then the two different approaches are some direct integrations via API, and then working with the marketplace like you guys.
So, Maurice, if I take that one step further, and we're approaching on time, and we try to end exactly at 11:30. But just from a future gazing perspective, I draw out this thing quite frequently. I call it the pathology analogy. We've also briefly talked about it, where one pathologist today signs out maybe 5,000 tests a day, 10,000 tests a day. You have automation on the surface, but at one level deeper, it's all statistical controls, mechanisms, all of that. In fact, we were recently called the mechanistic layer for radiology as well. So do you see a scenario where, and how do we get to that point where a radiologist, instead of reporting, say, 80 scans a day, is doing 800 a day? Because that 10x multiplier is what we're at least hoping for. So yeah, I would love your closing thoughts on how do we make radiologists 10x more productive and get radiology into all of the places in the world where it isn't.
Yep. So there's two questions, and in 30 seconds, I think there's massive opportunities for productivity improvement. But there's a paradox, and so I'll close on the paradox. The paradox is that it's the self-driving car paradox. It's probably likely that self-driving cars have fewer accidents than humans.
Yeah.
We're not that comfortable with self-driving cars when they have an accident. We're living with humans. And I think that healthcare is a human endeavor, and it's going to take a while culturally before we are ready to know how to use AI in a diagnostic setting. I think it will happen, but I think there are a lot of workflow and cultural issues between here and there. And I think that's part of what makes it such a fun and exciting area to be part of. I can't tell you how fun this conversation has been. Thank you.
No, Morris, sometimes I feel that, we should not restrict to the 30-minute mark, but maybe we'll do a longer one. I would love to do that. But once again, thank you so much for the time. Thank you to everybody who joined. This is going to go on YouTube pretty soon. And Boris is one of the most approachable people, so you can just ping him yourself, and I'm sure he'll answer all your questions.
True. That is
Uh,
true.
but thank you so much, and thank you, Morris, and see you next week, guys.
Thanks, Peter.
Bye.
Thank you. This was fantastic. Thank you, guys.